Hello, everybody, and welcome to Arts Corner, host sponsored by ISTT. And I'm really excited today. We have our first non-law enforcement guest on. And Mark, can you tell us about yourself and your business?
Yeah, so my name's Mark Biggs. I was born and raised here in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Lived here my whole life. I played professional baseball for 5 years, and since I've got out of baseball, I have been in financial services ever since here in Bowling Green. And just recently, this last fall, I went out on my own and started my own firm, Biggs Financial Services. And we deal in tax preparation and financial planning and some insurance and some other things. But yeah, so that's a little bit about me and what our business does.
You know, it always amazes me when I bump into other people. I went from law enforcement to teaching to now cybersecurity, and I bump into people all the time that are doing gear changes, going from baseball to being my tax guy.
Yeah, that's a big course correction.
That's a gear change.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
Mark, I want to talk about just briefly the first time you and I met.
Mhm.
You were concerned about cybersecurity when you first approached ISTT. And I said, well, I'm just going to treat you like HIPAA. And we were on the same page right then and there of,
Absolutely.
okay, this is serious stuff. And then I don't know if you remember or not, but I asked you, hey, have you ever done taxes for somebody and they're already done? And you knew exactly what I was talking about. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And there is a great source of information on tax records. And that's why we take our clients like you so seriously, because of all the sensitive information you have.
You're exactly
and
right.
There's some advantages of having a professional do your taxes. Can you go over what are the advantages of having a qualified professional like you, doing someone's taxes versus I was going to try and do my own, or my sister can do it, or my brother-in-law knows about that type of stuff. Why do I not want my brother-in-law to do my taxes?
Well, there's a multitude of reasons. Mostly, things are always changing when it comes to tax laws and regulations, and the IRS and federal and state laws regarding taxation on different things. And you want someone that is in the know and that is always looking for those updates and making sure they're current on credit changes and rate changes and different just nuances of the tax laws that change year over year. And especially years like this year, we're transitioning to a new administration that may have new tax laws coming. And so I just see it so often where someone may not have thought they needed a professional for their particular situation, but they get a letter from the IRS 2 or 3 years removed from that, and the penalties and interest that they incurred just because they didn't know. They didn't do anything wrong intentionally, but they just didn't know the rules changed or the laws changed or whatever it may be. Those penalties and interest cost more than what their actual filing fee would have been for a professional to do it. So it's just staying in the know and always being current on the laws and regulations when it comes to taxes.
Mark, you and I were talking before we started recording the show. IRS is on my list of people. Do not give them any reason. I want to make them as happy as possible. But
you're exactly right. You just want to make sure that everything's done properly and correctly, and you just keep them at bay. And whatever is owed or owed back to you, you just want to make sure that that's done properly and taken care of. Absolutely.
And if I did get an audit or something, and you do my taxes for me, you're going to go to bat with me. You're
100%
document as well, and that's
correct.
One of the things since I became an adult, I've always had a professional do the taxes. And there's a lot of things I forget. I'm like, I can write that off. Oh, okay.
Correct.
All right.
And that's where that's where the value add for somebody like me is a lot of times is just we're sitting down together preparing your taxes, and I ask these questions that you may not have even thought of. But there are situations that are common to me or that I've seen or just know that it's, a possibility for your situation that may end up saving you some money or limiting a liability or something like that. And that's another reason why, trusting someone as a professional to do that is recommended.
And then what we're going to talk about here, some identity theft cases that I've worked, and you and I have talked about this before as well. Having a professional, you're going to be able to put in your client's hand all the documents they need, because the next trip is to the police department.
Correct.
And we want to make sure that victim, when they walk in the door of the police department, we got as much information as we can ahead of time to make that officer's life a lot easier, and also to help the victim's process.
Absolutely.
Mark, tell me about one of your, not a client name or anything like that, but tell me about an incident generally about when you've had what you and I have talked about. Someone came in, you went and did your taxes. Tell me about that, please.
So what happens is, with a situation like that, a client will come in and you go through the whole process of preparing their return, and you get all the information plugged in, and social security numbers and addresses and dependents if need be, and you process the whole return. Everybody signs off and submits it. Well, the IRS will send you a rejection notice that the return has been rejected because that social security number has already been on a tax return that's already been accepted by the IRS. So then at that point, it just starts a whole whirlwind of a process of trying to figure out, number one, who it was is, obviously a professional like yourselves, hopefully duty to get handled. But then you have to figure out how you can actually file your own personal return, because you still got to file your return because the one that was filed first was fraudulent.
Right.
So it just creates a whole whirlwind of a process. And then the IRS does have some good systems in place to where once those things happen, they'll give you, some PIN numbers and some other things to make sure that in years going forward, they can verify that it is you who is actually filing the return in that social. So,
yeah, extreme identity theft cases on the criminal side, it's very rarely done, but sometimes, a new social security number had to be issued and a new driver's license number had to be issued. There's a
yep,
little flag that can be at the bottom that says identity theft victim, confirm identity for the law
right.
enforcement side. And that's
And on the tax return side too, going forward, once they issue those PIN numbers, they reissue them every year so that they're new numbers, so that they're not just one in case, an identity thief gets their hands on it one year. Going forward, if that PIN number is not on the return, they won't accept it.
Great. So if that happens to one of your clients, what are you putting in your hands before they walk out of your office?
I'm going to give them, obviously, all of their tax records that they brought me, the return that we tried to file for them with signatures on it. And then, of course, they'll need their ID and all that fun stuff to take to a professional like you that can start the process of trying to, chase this thing down.
Yeah. One of my favorite websites, annualcreditreport.com. The reason I like that annual credit report is because it's free and it's the only one recognized by or offered by the federal government. So that's the reason why I like that one. Annualcreditreport.com.
Okay.
And then another great source for identity theft victims and further information is identitytheft.gov. And you and I both know that a lot of people have their hands in identity theft, getting the victim help, including the Federal Trade Commission, IRS.
Correct.
A boatload of different agencies get involved with it, and it's also it's a long process, isn't it, Mark? This is not something we're fixing overnight.
It takes a long time, and that's why I said earlier it starts a whole whirlwind of a process, and it's just such a hard thing to track down and then finally end up resolving, whether or not the person is actually caught and prosecuted or not. Just getting things corrected on the consumer's end is a long process. It takes time, and it causes a lot of stress. But there are a bunch of different entities and different places that do have these systems in place to try to help ease that process along. Some of those you just alluded to, and the IRS, like I said, has some of those procedures in place too.
Now, Mark, law enforcement does not care about a person's credit score. That's something for someone like you to worry about and you to tell me. The annual credit report one that I mentioned does not give you a credit score because law enforcement's only worried about, is this information correct?
Correct.
You want to talk to somebody about what those actually mean, they need to go call you, not me. I can help you on the cybersecurity side, but you want a professional to help you understand what all these things go into.
Absolutely.
Now, Mark, if someone has a line on their credit report and you get one free one through that mechanism a year, and what I like to tell people to do is break the year up into thirds. You get one from each credit reporting entity each year. They don't have to be together. So wait 4 months, do one. Wait 4 months, do another, and there you go. Do you think that's a good way to at least try and keep an eye on things the way it's going?
I would think that's a great process to try to implement for multiple reasons. Number one, it keeps your finger on the pulse of what's happening, kind of behind the scenes with your information and your credit history and ratings and that sort of thing. So that if something does happen, hopefully you're not spending longer than a couple months in the dark about something that has been done fraudulently. So if you can break those up and do that 2 or 3 times a year, that should help ease a lot of the pain and suffering, hopefully, because it can be attacked faster
Yeah.
that way.
And we
Brought to light.
want to know about that when I'm sitting in your office. I want to know about that beforehand.
Right.
And what I always tell my any victims is, if you have an attorney or if you have a tax professional and you are an identity theft victim, I always encourage them to let their tax professional know. I realize it's got nothing to do with your taxes. That's not how this identity theft occurred, or
Right.
it's not part of this. But please let these types of people know, hey, what else do you think I need to do?
Absolutely.
Law enforcement, that's not a problem. How these things affect you financially, that is something they're going to have to talk to you about, not me.
Absolutely, because if they bring something up and they don't have a contact or a resource that they can use, or I can just pick up the phone very quickly and put them in contact with somebody like you that would know the steps and processes to take to get that ball rolling.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize that after they see you, it's off to law enforcement to, like you said, get this long and drawn on process
Absolutely.
taken care of. We got some free training, Mark. A lot of these identity thefts happen via computer. And on the screen right now is free training offered by ISTT. Just don't click.com. It goes over some phishing attacks.
Sure.
There's some cool free exercises in there as well, and shows you how to hopefully spot bad emails, because that's the biggest way we're seeing these identity theft victims.
Absolutely. And they're so good at what they do. If you're not really paying attention, you may not catch some of these things. And by the time that you realize kind of what you've done, it may be too late at that point.
Yeah.
So that would be great training to realize kind of some of the clues to look for. If something kind of looks off, maybe take a closer look before, clicking or responding or whatever they're trying to entice you to do. That's great advice.
And what we tell our clients is, if you spotted something you even think is halfway suspicious, you do yourself a favor, call your IT personnel and go, I want
Correct.
you to look at what's called headers. It's in the background. I don't want to get too geeky on it, but we can look and see where this truly came from.
Sure.
And anytime a client calls me, I thank them profusely. Thank you. You just saved you a headache, and you saved me a headache, and saved you time and money and aggravation.
And possibly someone else too.
Yeah, absolutely. We still see the old-fashioned way, but it's getting less and less of theft of mail matter.
Sure.
We still tell people get a cross-cut shredder. And you think about what we put in the U.S. mail. I've got a locking mailbox. If I didn't, I think I'd be dropping off a lot of my mail to a locking mailbox at the post office. You
100%.
What goes in the U.S. mail with all of our information on it.
Oh, there's financial information, there's personal information and data and addresses and, dates of birth and socials, all kinds of information that identity thieves are looking for.
And even on juveniles, people don't realize
Absolutely.
just because they're not 18 doesn't mean they can't be an identity theft victim.
You're exactly right.
So, Mark, just to wrap things up, thank you so much for being on the show with me today. And if someone needs to talk to a qualified person, Mark's right here in Bowling Green. He can assist you with a lot of different aspects.
Absolutely.
And please take advantage of our free training and check out those other links that we discussed to be educated about these things.
Absolutely.
Mark, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me, and it's a pleasure. And if I can help you or anyone else, please reach out. And I wholeheartedly trust Art and the team at ISTT for all of those types of needs that you or your business may have as well.
Thank you, sir. You have a great day.
You too.